Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Latin. I hope you guys had a good break. We're getting right back into the online classes, and we have something pretty exciting. At least it's exciting to me, and that is the beginning of Chapter 7. Some of you guys might have looked at the Quizlet vocab words for Chapter 7, maybe, the week before spring break. Kind of doubt it. That's fine, though, because now we're going to start looking at them. And yeah, this is something that we've hinted at for a while. It's been on that little poster board in front of the class all this time, and we have seen a good many third declension words show up in our stories, especially, and they've always kind of thrown us off because we had to deal with case endings that we did not yet know, and we are still learning our first two declensions as well. So this is kind of a chance for us to brush up on those. So in this video, I'm going to go over the third declension and what those endings actually are, and I want you to take notes. So any kind of notebook paper or even loose leaf, you want to go ahead and get that out. You can always pause the video whenever you need to go at your own pace. Also, before I get into this, we're still kind of figuring out the right way to distribute our classes, me and the other specials teachers like music and PE and stuff. For sixth grade, since I know Miss Riki is using Schoology, but the upper school is not using Schoology. So I'm going to try to send this out to parents on this first day of online classes, and we'll go from there. That might not be the way that we end up doing things because I know that's inconvenient for some people. And I also know that some of you guys might have trouble accessing YouTube, so I will see if I can upload this another way. But anyway, let's get into this for now, and we'll address those things as soon as possible. So go ahead and take some notes. I'm going to go through each of these cases, so you'll have plenty of time to write down this whole chart. And yeah, why not go ahead and write down the first and second declension endings as well, unless you readily have that noun chart that we made, that we decorated. In that case, if you had that, you probably wouldn't need this. But especially for those of you who maybe don't have your textbook because it's still at the school or something, you're going to want to write down as much as possible. You can always pause. And also, for people who have left their textbooks in Miss Riki's classroom potentially, your best bet is probably to download a digital version of the textbook. Probably wouldn't be too expensive. Hopefully something like $10. But anyway, I will try to just kind of upload and paste as much content from the textbook as possible for people who don't have the textbook. Okay, so the nominative. Let's focus on the nominative first. So I'm going to bold these as we go. We are focusing on those yellow endings. The singular ones are in the center of the screen, and the plural ones are in the far right center. So first declension is in red, right? We know the first declension nominative, those feminine nouns, they end in A, and second declension ends in US or R. If you see that slash, that means the other side of the slash will be the neuter ending. So neuter endings end in UM. And then third declension, it's kind of weird. It's going to be basically, you would just write a question mark in that space because we don't know how it's going to end. Unlike first and second declension, it can end in several ways. I think it does end up being about 12-ish different possibilities, but that's so many that it's almost like in math where you have a variable. I don't know if you guys have gotten to algebra yet, but it's just it's not something that we can count on knowing. It's going to differ for every third declension vocabulary word we get. You see the notes there at the bottom of the screen. We do have some pretty common ones. I really like these third declension nouns that end in X. I think it's a cool set of Latin nouns. We have some that end in S. We have some that end in US, which is kind of weird. So that'll make us think of second declension. They can end in AS. That's also weird because that can make us think of first declension accusative plural. And then we have a few, at least this chapter, that end in EN, which is an ending we've never seen. So EN and X and just S by itself, those are all endings we've never really seen before. So these will stand out. And if I jump over to the plural side, right, on the right side of the screen, first declension ends in AE, second and long I, neuter is an A, and then third declension neuter or nominative plural rather is going to end in es. So each declension tends to like certain vowels, or sometimes just like one vowel, especially. Third declension seems to like I's and E's a lot. There's a lot of I's and E's showing up. You might already see that. The neuter, though, is going to end in A, just like the second declension. All right, so one down. And again, that is the nominative case, which is our subject case, right? If you're feeling real rusty, if you're like, whoa, what are even cases or declensions? What is Latin? That's reasonable. After a long break, people, like, regardless of what level you're at or how old you are, any time you spend away from a language, it does start to, you don't lose it, but it gets rusty really quickly. So just give yourself a week or two to snap back into the groove a little bit. All right, that is the nominative. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Moving right ahead. The genitive, the possessive case, right? That second case, the possessive case. If you move left to right, first declension ends in ae, just like the nominative plural. Second is a long I. And then third declension is is. So whereas the nominative can end in all sorts of ways, the genitive is always going to be is, right? Most of the other case endings, they're going to be standard. I mean, they're going to be consistent, not like the nominative, which is just kind of going to be whatever it wants to be. And I want you to notice that this is a short I and then an S, unlike the ablative and dative plural endings we've had for a while in the first two declensions, the is ending, right? So this is different from that. You're not going to get it mixed up because I'm not going to leave off those macrons, and neither will the textbook. So this is ending, okay? And then moving to the plural side, arum and aurum. I think you guys know those pretty well when you don't get them mixed up with accusatives. And then for third declension. That one's pretty weird because it's going to make us think it's like a neuter subject in the second declension or a direct object in the second declension, masculine, which isn't great. Yeah, it's kind of weird. You'll see sometimes it does actually end up looking like aurum if the stem of the noun ends in or already, but it's technically just a u and an m. So that one's kind of weird. We are going to get that mixed up with direct objects from our second declension. Yeah, moving right along to our third of our 5 cases, since we're not going to worry about vocative. That's just vocative will repeat nominative. But the dative, moving left to right, first is ae, second is long o, and then third is long I. It's kind of weird. So once again, and like this is why they wait 7 chapters to give us a third declension. There's a little bit of tricky overlap with the second declension. So you can see there, it's actually we're gonna get it mixed up with genitive singulars, right? Or like nominative plurals from the second declension. That's not great. Yeah. Though we're kind of used to these longer vowels showing up in the dative singular, so that's something. And then this one's a weird one. This is a 4-letter. This is the longest third declension ending. Moving to the plural side, first we have is for first and second, but then ibis for third declension. Ibis. That one's kind of weird. Yeah, we haven't seen that before, so that should really jump out to you. And I just want to note right now while I'm at it, it will repeat. Ibis is the dative and the ablative plural. So dative and ablative plurals are always the same. All right, second to last one, and then we'll look at some of our brand new words and be done for the day. But the accusative is em. Now this just makes perfectly good sense. We're used to first and second declension endings ending in m. We have and in first and second. Now we have em. Though the neuter, so you notice after that slash I have another question mark. For the neuter third declension nouns we get, because get this, third declension includes all 3 genders. So whereas first is mostly just feminine, and second is masc and neuter, third is going to be all 3. Pretty crazy. Okay, masculine that is, by the way. So what the nouns that are neither masculine nor feminine, they're just going to repeat their nominative. So my note there at the bottom, that's what it's saying, and I don't know if you know this or if it came up, but the word animal, that's straight out of Latin. That is just completely a Latin word. And so animal, if you ever ran into it in a Latin sentence, that could be the subject or the direct object because it's going to be the same. We have other words like mare, which means ocean or sea. That could be nominative or accusative. And then moving to the plural side, os and os. Maybe y'all know those pretty well. They're pretty distinct. And then we have es again. So this es, that's the same as the nominative plural. So that's kind of a trick out of neuter nouns playbook where they repeat their nominative. Remember, they are neither masculine nor feminine. That's what neuter means. And then the a is also going to repeat, obviously, for neuter. Okay, our last case is the ablative. Oh, weird. Ignore my note at the bottom. That's still about the accusative. But the ablative is just going to be an e. And ignore that period, too. It's just an e, a short e by itself. It doesn't have a macron. So that's pretty distinct. That should kind of stand out. And we're somewhat used to ablatives having just like a single vowel as their ending. So ah and o and now eh. It's kind of like an eh, not quite an a, like a long e. And then we have on the plural side is, and ibis. Ibis once again. All right. This word. Let's actually look at some third declension words because it'll make almost a little more sense if you actually see them. And we'll talk about on Friday, hopefully, how to get the stems of these words. You're going to need to look at the genitive to actually get the stem because the nominative is usually going to be so different. But I'm not sure if this word has come up or not. Like I said, I like Latin nouns that end in X. They're just kind of cool, I guess. So nox, noctis. This is not technically a vocab word for this chapter, but I just like it a lot. So a related word kind of gives it away, and it's coming from the genitive stem, not anything from the nominative, because the C and the T showing up in the genitive, that's where we actually get the stem that translates over into English words like nocturnal. So nocturnal means animals are nocturnal if they stay up at night. Okay, we have this weird ghostly image of this Greek goddess Nyx. Nyx in Latin means snow, but for Greek that was this like goddess of night who doesn't really show up too much, but she has some horses, I guess, who hang out with her. And so yeah, animals like bats, Vespertilio, are nocturnal, right? And so we're getting nocturnal again from the genitive, actually. So nox, noctis, nocti, noctum, nocta, noctes, noctum, noctibus, noctes, noctibus would be the declension of nox. Okay, now let's actually look at our actual vocab words for this chapter. Our first one is Carmen Carminus. This one isn't super guessable. The only related word in English is charm, apparently, and it's also a song in Italian or the Italian opera Habanera. Whether you know it or not, you've probably heard this tune. It's I'm not great at humming, but this actually means song or poem. So for Roman people, those were kind of the same thing. Musical lyrics as well as lyrics that were just to be recited. You could use the same word to refer to both of them, which kind of makes sense, right? The writing that you find in like pop music is it's at least somewhat poetic, right? It's kind of poetry. And so I have Orpheus there, that Greek hero of he was supposed to be the greatest musician in Greek mythology, to the point where his lyre playing was so good that he can make like rocks and trees like float and dance to his music. Kind of crazy. All right, corpus corporis. You might be able to guess this one. We have related words which include corporal. You might not know that one. Corporation, corps, as in like Marine Corps, corporate, and corporal, which is similar to corporal. But yeah, this one's actually pretty hard to guess unless you just happen to know what corporal means or corporeal, which means having to do with the body. This just means body. We have this interesting scientific image there. But yeah, so this can be a literal body of like a person or a figurative body, meaning like the Marine Corps. It's a body of soldiers, if that makes sense. As in, it's like a group kind of that make up this not literal body but figurative. Whereas a corporation is like a business that it's large enough where it's just this whole figurative body of businesses. I don't know if that's a great way of explaining it, but yeah, it can be like an actual body or figurative. Amor amoris. You might know this from there's that song That's Amore, that Italian song, or yeah, it carries over into an Italian amore. But we get the word amorous from this, which you probably never heard. It's not a commonly used word. But it's also related to amicus and amo, amare. Oh, yeah, so that's where you know it from, amo, amare. So amo, amare is to like something. So this is a noun, which means love, right? So it's related to that whole family of words like amigo and amicus and amicable and stuff like that. So now it's like we have the noun form of essentially the first verb we ever got way back in chapter 1. There's Cupid. Okay, Mos Morris. You really cannot guess this. Sometimes we use this in English every once in a while. You've probably never heard it. It's rare. It's more old timey. But mores, people talk about not like the word like I want more of something, but the mores of an older generation or the mores. People pronounce it differently. But this means we get the word moral from it. That might help a little bit because it can mean moral or habit or manner or custom. So mores, moral, morale. Yeah. Okay, kivitas, kivitatis. I'm actually kind of pronouncing the V because otherwise it sounds like I'm talking about tossing kiwi fruit. Okay, so kivitas, kivitatis. This one's pretty guessable. Once I show you the related words, it's going to be a giveaway. But we get words like, and again, you can always pause if you actually like want to puzzle through this yourself, since I'm going pretty quickly. But we get like civilization, civilized, and civilian. Um, so this means citizenship, or it can also mean state. And yeah, state as in like a group of people. So this is not an individual citizen. That would be civis, which we'll get a little later. Um, but it's the actual idea of citizenship, which was something that Italian people had to fight for. If you were born in Italy early in the Roman Republic, that wouldn't necessarily mean you were a Roman citizen. So that led to a civil war actually. It had to do with owning land, getting treated like other Roman citizens. We also have pacus. We get the word pacify from this, like if you make a baby calm down or something by giving them a pacifier. We also get pacifist. That is someone who doesn't like our Latin bellum, doesn't like war. So pax pacus means peace. Okay, we already had otium from chapter 4. Um, that can kind of mean peace, but it's more like leisure time. It's otium would describe what you guys just had, which was spring break, which we all had, right? This though is more like the opposite of war. So yeah, it's come up before. And Augustus, right? Godson of Julius Caesar. We are post Ides of March now, which is kind of cool. We sort of missed that a little bit, but maybe I'll include something about that next week. Uh, Augustus closed the doors to the temple of Janus, that two-headed god that we named January after, because Rome stopped being at war with itself during that time. They were still conquering other territories somewhat, but Augustus started this Pax Romana, right? This Roman peace that lasted for almost 2 centuries. So that was pretty cool. It's a good thing Augustus did. Tempus temporis. We just have a few more and then we're done. Tempus temporis. We get temporary and temporal. So temporal is maybe a word you haven't heard before, but it's often used in tandem with the word spatial. So spatial has to do with like space. Temporal things have to do with time. Okay. So tempus temporis. So notice that nominative. If you didn't look at the genitive, you would just think this is second declension. This is like a normal second declension word. So that's kind of weird, right? And that our next one will be like that too. But then temporis, the genitive gives it away. And the actual stem is going to be tempor. So tempus, temporis, tempori, temporum, tempora, tempores, temporum, temporibus, tempores, temporibus. This is our last one for today. and we will pick up on this on Friday. Again, you can go back through this if you want to get a good chunk of notes. And it would be a great idea. I'll probably actually assign this for next week, but why not make some flashcards while you're at it? A lot of these, I like these third declension nouns. It's like we're getting some good nouns now. The good kind of nouns to draw a picture to or like illustrate. So you could kind of get decorative with some flashcards. But where tutus, this one, I feel like it's pretty easy. It's actually one of our LTA. Uh, um, well, if I say it, I'll give it away. It's a virtue. Okay, it's one of our virtues. Because it means virtue, which is a more general word when we use it in English, but it also can specifically mean courage. So courage in Latin can just be virtus. So like virtue and courage for ancient Romans was kind of the same thing. And this is weirdly related to the weird weir for like man, but also virtue and virtuoso. Someone who is just really good at something like an instrument is a virtuoso. It's a cool word. It's Italian. All right, guys. I hope you guys are getting back in the groove with the online classes and everything is going well in general. Again, we're going to figure out exactly how to get these lessons out to you guys since I know Miss Riki and Miss Calamine are using Schoology, which I am not quite using at this point, but we will see what happens. By next week, we'll have it all figured out. So hopefully most of you are able to access this on the day I'm sending it out on Wednesday, which is today when you're hearing this, hopefully. And yeah, we'll go from there. All right, thanks, guys. Walete.